Okay, Shannon, you can put us on the record.
Okay.
Okay, this is the continuation of Broad versus Silvius, and I don't really remember where we left off, but I'm sure you gentlemen know.
Your Honor, good morning, Your Honor. Nick Jurai on behalf of Mitchell Silvius.
Thank you, Your Honor. Eric White appearing on behalf of the petitioner, Kelly Ayers.
And Eric, or Mr. White, at least my recollection from reviewing the video, I don't know, about a week or two ago, I think you were done with your cross, but I'm not going to speak for you.
I think I had just I don't think I'd quite finished. My notes indicate I'd left off. We were talking about the minor child and your client's drinking. I think I was pretty close though.
Okay.
Let me know when you're ready, Judge.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me okay, Mr. Silvius?
If I can.
Okay. I think you had testified previously that you do not consume alcohol with Kimmy around. Is that correct?
Correct.
When's the last time that you actually would have consumed any alcohol of any kind Kimmy was present?
I can't recall a date off the top of my head, but it would have had to have been at least early February and previously on before that, late January.
How about in since August, when Kelly filed this motion to change custody, since August of 2020, during that year of 2020, did you ever consume alcohol in front of Kimmy?
Yes.
To excess?
No.
So from August 2020 through the end of 2020, you were never intoxicated in the presence of Kimmy?
May have been a couple of nights here and there.
Well, we've gone from never having to do it to a couple nights. What's a couple mean to you?
About 2 or 3.
Who else was present there to watch over Kimmy if you had been drinking to that extent?
Sometimes I'd have my brother over, my dad over. I've had my cousin over. No, then of course at that time there was, which is now my ex-girlfriend, Jasmine at the time.
So you remember what started this whole thing when you texted Kelly about Jasmine not being suitable to be around Kimmy. You remember that in August, right?
Correct.
But even after you'd made that text, you allowed Kimmy to be cared for by Jasmine while you were intoxicated on at least a couple of occasions, right?
I wouldn't say Jasmine cared for her while I was intoxicated.
Well, if she was there and you were intoxicated, she would kind of be that one, wouldn't she?
I mean, I'm more than capable of making dinner, making sure that she gets showered and dressed and ready for bed. I never got so intoxicated that blackout drunk, fall on the floor and can't even care for my own self.
Well, there's a pretty wide range between having a couple cocktails with dinner and being blackout drunk. It sounds like you admitted a couple times where you were intoxicated. You don't think that impacts your ability to provide care for a child?
Depending on the severity.
How do you explain contacting Kelly August 3rd about Jasmine being this horrible person to expose your little girl to, and then keeping her around for August and September and October and November? How do you explain keeping this person around your child when you've already admitted she shouldn't be there?
It was a long process on trying to have Jasmine leave the house in a more positive aspect. There was already a lot of negativity going on, and then this trial started. It was a very stressful situation. I was just trying to find something to which everybody could be less stressful about. I was hoping that Jasmine would be able to move out on her own. She had told me time and time again that she was going to be moving out on her own, and to which she eventually did.
But what was more important, Jasmine or Kimmy? Because you clearly acknowledge in August that Jasmine can't be around your child, but you keep her around for months. What's more important there? Was Kimmy the ultimate deal for you, or was Jasmine more important?
My daughter is always the most important to me.
Except for you didn't take any action for months to prove that by kicking Jasmine out. Did you?
No.
And in fact, you kept Jasmine around. What happened in December involving CPS?
Well, found out that Jasmine had called CPS on Kelly and her husband, Andrew.
And this whole situation could have been avoided with CPS and Kimmy being interviewed if you had just taken steps back in August when you first recognized that she couldn't be around. Right?
Correct.
But you didn't. When we had to file an ex parte action back in December based on the craziness of Jasmine still in your life, did you immediately remove her from the house after that ex parte order was entered?
In December, yes.
So what date did she move out of your home?
I want to say it was December 11th.
You packed up all her stuff as soon as you found out that she made false allegations, and you kicked her right out?
Actually, it was the date that we had court for the motion for the ex parte order. I told Jasmine that she had to leave that day, and she got out of work. She made threatening messages to myself. I called the police, and I can't remember the officer's name, but the officer came. Officer told her that she does need to leave. She already had a place signed for a lease. The only thing that the officer asked that I do is that I leave the premises while Jasmine packed up all of her belongings and left.
And have you had no contact with her since?
I've had minimal contact with her.
What's minimal?
She once tried to accuse me of impregnating her, and with a positive pregnancy test in January. She's tried to ask me to come back to review the relationship.
When was that?
That had been going on and off throughout January, but I didn't want to pursue anything with her.
Are you the father of one of her children?
No, I am not.
Have you had DNA testing to make that determination? Because you're aware that she's telling folks that you're the father of her child, right?
I'm sure she is.
Let's make an assumption that you actually are, okay? How could you possibly have a relationship with that child and her with all the problems that have existed with you and Kimmy here and some of the issues that have gone on there?
Well, first of all, I'm going to object to it because it's a hypothetical question. Which child are you talking about?
Would be her youngest, I believe.
How old is her youngest?
I think that's up to your client to answer,
How old
Nick.
is her youngest?
Jasmine's youngest, I believe, she's either 2 or about to turn 2.
Did you even know her 2 years ago?
No.
Okay.
Hold on.
Hang on. Sorry, hang on. I met Jasmine 4 months before she gave birth. I'm sorry. I had to think about that for a second.
Do you think that you have an alcohol problem or a substance abuse problem, sir?
I do not believe I do not believe so.
Now, there's a young lady that has moved into your home that I think you've already testified that you're not romantically involved with her.
Correct.
Where are all of her clothes at? Are they in your bedroom?
No,
Well, how many bedrooms are there? Would they actually have doors on them?
I have 4 bedrooms.
How many bedrooms have actually doors on them?
4 bedrooms.
Okay, one has French doors that are glass, right? That's
Correct.
not really a bedroom, is it?
Um,
The one with all the boxes in it?
there's no boxes in that room with French doors. That's my daughter's room. It has a point of egress and it does have a closet. It's considered a bedroom.
But it has glass double French doors, right?
Correct.
And you believe that's a bedroom?
Yes.
And your sworn testimony under oath is that you've had no physical relationship with this 21-year-old that you moved in after Jasmine, right?
Correct.
You heard the counselor testify about how your daughter described your drinking. Did you hear all that?
Correct.
And I believe that you've denied that, right?
Yes.
Can you explain why your daughter would make repeated lies to a therapist about your alcohol?
I don't know if I would say so much as lies. I call it perception. Sometimes things in a child's eyes are much drastically different from what things really truly are. Have I drank in front of Kim before? Yes. Here more recently to the point of excess, I mean, even at all, I haven't done so. I mean, I haven't drank very heavily in a while,
What's a while?
few months.
What's a few?
I'd say at least in January.
So back when this started in August of 2020 until January 2021, you were drinking heavily then?
Throughout that entire time, no, I have not been drinking heavily. I drank, but not heavily.
And you understand that those times between August 2020 and the end of the year, Kimmy was talking about that and after January, right, to the counselor?
Yes.
You think it's a perception. How old is Kimmy? 8?
Yes.
Pretty smart little girl, isn't she?
She's very smart.
And you think it's all about her perception that led her to tell the counselor that you drink too much?
Not 100%.
You ever been tested for substance abuse, had an evaluation for substance abuse or alcoholism?
Yes.
When was that?
It was when I out processed from the military.
They gave you a substance abuse evaluation when you leave the military?
When you leave the military, they make sure that you're in perfect healthy order. They don't want to release people that aren't mentally stable out into the general public. They want to
So
make
you had I'm sorry, go ahead.
they like to make sure that when your contract is over, that you're the utmost able to go back to civilian life without any issues.
So everybody that separates from the military gets the substance abuse evaluation?
I can't say that. It was just part of my out processing.
When was that?
My out processing was in between August 2013 and January 2014.
You've had no substance abuse testing or evaluation since then?
No,
When's the last time you had a drink?
I want to say probably last Wednesday.
Okay. Just give me 1 second here, Your Honor. So if you were trying to move Jasmine out starting in August, do you remember going and having family pictures taken with her in September?
Yes.
Do you normally have family photos taken with someone that you're moving out because they're not good for your family situation?
Honestly, it was the first time I ever had family photos taken.
So very first time you have family photos taken with a person that you don't think should be around your child and you're attempting to move out, but I'll have a family photo taken?
It was an agreed upon situation.
Agreed upon, what's that mean?
Well, Jasmine wanted to do family photos. I'm not very photogenic. I did want to do photos with myself and Kimberly, and Jasmine offered to pay for the entire shoot. So I got some photos of Kim and I, and Jasmine got the photos that she wanted, which don't mean anything to me.
You mean this photo, you and Jasmine, that doesn't mean anything to you? Does that look familiar?
Yes.
So the person that you're moving out because your ex-wife's trying to take custody, you get family photos. I have that right?
Yep.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor, for now. Thank you.
Your Honor, some redirect related to his cross. You
Can
mentioned,
can you hold on just a minute?
Sure.
I have another case on my docket this morning. I was a little confused about which Kelly was on the screen when she first came on, but let Mr. Navarre in and find out what's going on with that other case. So hold on. Okay, sorry about that, Mr. Lujura. You may proceed.
yeah, so there was a reference, Mitchell, to the military. How long, what branch were you in?
United States Army.
And from what years?
From 2010 to 2014.
Were you deployed?
Yes, I was.
Where were you deployed to?
Afghanistan.
How long were you in Afghanistan?
Roughly 9 months.
Were you allowed to consume alcohol in Afghanistan?
No.
Why is that?
I mean, you're in combat territory. You can't have any soldier at any given point in time not be fully 100% able, mentally and physically ready to go. So nothing that alters or impairs your ability to fire a weapon, drive a vehicle, act on instinct if need be.
What was your job in Afghanistan?
I was 19 Delta Cavalry Scout.
What is that?
Description of a cavalry scout: go behind enemy lines, detect undetected, not known, point out land features, enemies, vehicles, things of nature, so that you can get them to the commander, so that the commander has full eyes on the battlefield.
Now, one of the issues that came up was your daughter treating with the therapist and what she's been reporting to the therapist. You heard that question?
Yes.
Looking at the notes, your daughter first started treating with the therapist on September 16th, 2020. When was the first time you were aware that your daughter was seeing a therapist?
January 28th.
Kim, your daughter had never mentioned to you that she was seeing a therapist?
No.
Had you ever been contacted by the therapist?
No.
Did Miss Ayers ever tell you your daughter was seeing a therapist?
No.
One of the issues that came up is that your daughter has a cell phone.
Yes.
Have you ever tried to call that cell phone?
Yes, I have.
And what happened?
The call does not go through.
And what did you find out why?
I found out that our daughter's phone is restricted to only a few contacts.
And you're not one of those contacts.
Correct.
Do you have any issue with a court order that says that when your daughter's with you, you cannot consume alcohol?
I do not have an issue with that.
have no further questions, Your Honor.
For the witnesses?
No, Your Honor. Not for me.
No, Your
Mr.
Honor.
White?
No, thank you.
Sounds like we're ready for arguments.
Yes, Your Honor. I'll be brief. I think that the storyline here is fairly important. As you can tell, in early August, Your Honor, my client filed her own ex parte motion based on a pretty disturbing text message that Mr. Sylvia sent her that said his live-in girlfriend, that Kimmy wasn't safe to be around her. So my client did exactly what any good parent would do. She took immediate action. And the court declined to sign an ex parte order, but set this matter for this evidentiary hearing that we're now engaged in. And a number of items and issues were brought up by Ms. Ayers in that initial pleading. Well, we've heard the story that although Mr. Sylvius believed that this Jasmine was a bad person to be around Kimmy, he took no action to put her out in August or September or October or November or December. And in fact, you saw the little nice family photo I held up. It's one of a series. The fact is that this person that Mr. Sylvius says he's trying to throw out, he's taking family photos. And those family photos include everybody, her kids, his child, the whole works. That's not consistent with somebody whose words say, I'm trying to throw this person out who's bad for my daughter. If he would have, perhaps the December hearing wouldn't be necessary. Because Mr. Sylvius refused to take action and get this person that he admits is bad to be around his daughter, this girlfriend files, she calls the police, calls CPS, files a false claim against Miss Ayers and her husband. It's only then, finally, that he takes action to put this person out of Kimmy's life. Meanwhile, Kimmy's having issues and she's seeing a therapist. The therapist is quite clear that Mr. Sylvius, the reports from Kimmy is Mr. Sylvius has a serious drinking problem. And you can tell, Your Honor, he's changed his story repeatedly from I never drink around Kimmy to I have drank around Kimmy. I've never been intoxicated around her to maybe I have a couple times. That's not credible, Your Honor. And 8-year-olds simply don't make up stories about the things that she's told this therapist. And the things she's told this therapist are very concerning. It should be concerning to the court, it's concerning to my client, and it's certainly concerning to the therapist. The problem is, I don't think that you can take another chance with Mr. Sylvius. He got a warning in August. All he did was double down and continue his relationship with this very toxic person. We're stuck with yet another problem in December. Mr. Sylvius can say that he's not going to expose this child to anybody like this again. He's going to say, I'm not going to drink around her. But the fact is, it doesn't sound like he can be trusted. When the chips were down in August, he just kept going down that same road, Your Honor. We believe we've met the burden to change the custody. What we're asking the court to do is award Mr. Sylvius every other weekend, and that he's to have no alcohol for the 24 hours preceding parenting time, any parenting time with Kimmy, and during, and that he could be subject to a preliminary breath test by a law enforcement officer upon request. There's only one way to get this young lady back in the right track, and that's to minimize, unfortunately, the time she spent with her father, because he's making poor decisions. During COVID, he not only has this Jasmine problem, he's moved in a young 21-year-old girl that he claims isn't a romantic interest. Imagine bringing a 21-year-old into your home during the height of COVID when we're trying to be safe. These are decisions that aren't made in the best interests of Kimmy And we believe that you should change the custodies we requested, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Legerai.
Your Honor, let's start in August. On or about August 3rd or 4th, I forget the exact date. And Mr. Silvius, in his continuing effort to co-parent with Miss Ayers, contacts him about his concerns. Miss Ayers, instead of discussing that with him, files an ex parte motion to take away his parenting time and take away Kimmy's time with her dad. That doesn't get granted. We have a hearing on or about September 10th, where you can look at the order where the court orders that there will be no unsupervised contact between Jasmine and Kimmy. What does mom do? Less than a week later, she goes and has Kimmy see a therapist. We went through those notes. I went through the testimony with the therapist. I have those notes in front of me, and it says current living situation, mom, Andrew, Kim. Dad's not referenced. You heard mom's testimony. She never gave the therapist dad's contact information. You heard dad's testimony that although this starts in September, he doesn't find out about it until end of January. When I look at those notes, in the first visit, remember this is less than a week after the court hearing, in the therapist notes, mom says, oh, one of the reasons I'm here is to change custody. There is, in those notes, oh, dad's drinking, that sort of thing, but there's no reference as Mr. White indicates that he's always intoxicated. Now let's go again. Let's review the record again. We have another motion in December because this Jasmine, who I don't want to be indelicate, but from what I can tell, she's somewhat of a nut, calls CPS and says Miss Ayers and her husband are abusing the child. What does Mr. Silvius do? Does he take advantage of that? No. When CPS contacts him, he supports mother in her efforts. We have testimony in this case. I reviewed the videos. I took note of mom's testimony. And when mom testified and Mr. White asked her, well, what should the parenting situation be, parenting time? I think I should have her 100% of the time and dad shouldn't see her at all. Dad, throughout all this, has always tried to co-parent with mom, but mom's just not interested. I want to back up in time even a little bit more, Your Honor. And the reason why I want to do that is because this is what she's done from the beginning. In getting ready for these hearings, I reviewed my original trial brief. Originally, the divorce trial in this matter had been set for Halloween, October 31, 2014.
Your Honor, I hate to interrupt Mr. Legerai, but if he's going to bring up things prior to August, I just want to have the ability, I would want to have the ability to reopen proofs. There's a psychological evaluation of Mr. Silvius that's incredible. If we're going to go back that far, I'd want the court to see the psych eval.
Your Honor, I'll be brief.
So,
Hold on. Before we get into that, Your Honor, let me phrase it this way. If you review this file, and I think all that's in the file, if you review this file from the beginning, mom has been trying to deny Kimmy a relationship with her father from the very beginning. Father's always tried to work with mom. Mom, it's pretty clear, is trying to replace father with her new husband and has no interest in co-parenting with dad. The law is pretty clear, Your Honor, and what I have in front of me is just Shade v. Wright, but there's quotes from it that I like and I think are important. And there's a quote in it and it says, the goal of MCL 722.27 is to minimize unwarranted disruptive changes of custody orders, except under the most compelling circumstances. It's clear that this child has an established custodial environment in both homes and has had one for, what's the math on it? 6.5 years. Thank you, Mitchell. And there's nothing here, I think, that warrants changing the parenting time. You've heard of the testimony. Mom gets daughter a phone, but blocks dad's phone number from that phone. Mom gets daughter in therapy, but doesn't include dad in that therapy when that therapy is allegedly related to dad's behaviors. How does that make sense for this child? I'll leave the court to answer that question. Your Honor, do you have any questions for me?
I don't have any questions. Anything further, Mr. White?
Just 2 points, Your Honor. The only time my client has taken court action to make this change, starting with August 20, was she reacted to a request from Mr. Silvius that I've got this, as Mr. LaJurai says, I got a nut here, basically. She's not been trying to change custody. She reacted to that in August, then she reacted in December to yet another thing. So I would hope that you take that into account as well, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Did you hear anything from Navarre?
I did, yeah. He said Mr.
Okay, so in order for the court to change custody when there's an established custodial environment, requires clear and convincing evidence that the change is in the child's best interest. Here we have equally shared custody between the two parents that's been in place for a substantial period of time. I don't think anybody can seriously argue that there's not indeed an established custodial environment with both parents. What the mother is requesting that I change that so that she has primary physical custody and Mr. Silvius has basically every other weekend parenting time, reasonable rights, unquestionably would impact the custodial environment the child enjoys with Mr. Silvius, and therefore it would require clear and convincing evidence that such a change is in the child's best interest. So we've spent several hours in testimony talking about the circumstances that brought us here, which was the whole situation with Jasmine. I think I've already previously ruled, but if it wasn't clear from the testimony or previous rulings, that clearly that situation was sufficiently severe that it would justify the court revisiting the issue of custody. So from that, in order for me to change custody as mom requests, I have to find that the best interests factors clearly and convincingly weigh in favor of that change in custody. Most of the testimony focused on that circumstance and dad's drinking, but which certainly impacts some of the best interest factors, but I'm still required to go through each of the best interest factors. The first one being the love, affection, and other emotional ties existing between the parties involved and the child. I think there clearly is an emotional bond between both parties and their daughter. The bond appears to be stronger with mom than it is with dad, based on all of the testimony that I received, and in particular, the counselor. The next factor is the capacity and disposition of the parties to give the child love, affection, and guidance, and to continue education and raising of the child in his or her religion or creed. The uh, uh, I didn't hear anything to suggest that there was any shortcoming in mom's ability to give this child love, affection, guidance, continue her education. I have to look back at my notes. I don't remember if there was much discussion of religion in the mother's home. Give me just a moment. Well, it's certainly possible that I missed it, but my notes would suggest that religion doesn't seem to be an important factor in either home. With respect to continuing the education, it certainly does appear that mom is more involved in Kimmy's education than dad is. I recall specifically that when she's returned to mom's home, she's typically not even ready to go to school. Mom has to take care of that preparation. Mom, by her testimony, was the only one of the two parents making an effort to make sure that Kimmy got all her schoolwork done, particularly during the time period when she was virtual only. With respect to the ability to give guidance, there is certainly a significant question in the court's mind of dad's judgment where his daughter's involved. He immediately recognized that back in August that Jasmine was not a good influence on his daughter. And I commend him for immediately bringing that to mom's attention. But the fact that Jasmine remained in the home for a substantial period of time and ultimately didn't get booted out until it appeared that this court was going to be conducting an evidentiary hearing to look into the matter. It would certainly appear that what prompted dad to get Jasmine out of the home in the final analysis was pressure from mom in moving this case forward rather than a desire from dad to do what he apparently recognized back in August he needed to do, was to get her out of there. It's good that he finally did, but it's troubling to the court that it took so long. The next factor, capacity and disposition of the parties to provide the child with food, clothing, medical care, other remedial care. It certainly looks like both parties have the ability to provide her with the necessities of life. I don't see any significant difference here that would distinguish either parent as being a little more outstanding in this area. The length of time the child has lived in a stable, satisfactory environment and the desirability of maintaining continuity. The environment with mom clearly appears to be stable and satisfactory. I didn't hear anything questioning mom's ability to safely parent this child or any problems in the mother's home. The dad's home, on the other hand, has been unstable and at times very unsatisfactory. Unsatisfactory throughout the time that Jasmine was living there, which was a period of several months, even after this first incident came into being. And I just can't believe that everything was rosy right up until the incident in August. There had to be signs that this woman was not a good influence, not a good person to be around this child. And yet that is who Dad chose to bring into his home and to continue in his home even after he finally acknowledged that she shouldn't be there. The other difficulty I find about the environment in Dad's home is his drinking. I think he has minimized the seriousness of his drinking. Clearly, the level of drinking has had a significant impact upon this child. The fact that she's telling a counselor and is being kept awake at night by loud parties is troublesome. How that's just not a healthy environment for a child to be in. It's anything but healthy, anything but stable, and it's somewhat refreshing to hear that Dad's beginning to acknowledge he's had a problem with drinking, but I don't think he realizes the full extent of his drinking issues. People that drink to excess on a repeated basis clearly shouldn't be drinking at all. That factor is very concerning to the court. The next factor is the permanence as a family unit of the existing or proposed custodial home or homes. Mom has got a permanent, stable family unit. Dad's home has been anything but permanent. This 21-year-old that's currently living in the home, whether or not she's a romantic interest, again, is indicative of instability in the home. Children need stability. They don't need adults moving in and out of a home on a regular basis. So we've got Jasmine there for how long? I don't know. I'm glad she's gone, but she probably never should have been there in the first place. We've got this new live-in arrangement that certainly, whether it's romantic or not, demonstrates a lack of permanence, of an instability. The issue of moral fitness, the only issue that was raised regarding moral fitness that the court believes to be significant is the drinking issue. Mental and physical health, there wasn't a lot of testimony that suggests that either parent is mentally or physically unable to parent this child. But again, the alcoholism impacts that. Home, school, and community record of the child. It would appear that the parent most involved in the child's school involvement is mom. That would not be in any way undermined or disrupted if custody were changed to give mom primary physical custody. Reasonable preference of the child. I did interview Kim. She was able to express a very clear preference, which I am taking into account. Willingness and ability of each of the parties to facilitate and encourage a close and continuing parent-child relationship between the child and the other parent. The relationship here between the parents is not ideal. I don't see that dad is doing something intentionally to undermine the child's relationship with mom. He seems to be supportive of that. He even reached out to mom when he saw things were going south in his own home. I do question the degree to which mom wishes to facilitate and encourage a close relationship, but obviously that's impacted by what she sees is going on in dad's home. That, although troubling to the court does understand why a parent would be concerned to see that the relationship with the other parent is dragging the child down. Domestic violence, I guess the only thing I can say about that is the craziness that Jasmine brought into the home. Clearly it's gone now, so that's no longer a factor, but boy, her presence in that home was anything but good for this child. So evaluating all of the best interest factors, I do find that they weigh clearly and convincingly in favor of a change of custody. I'm going to award primary physical custody to mom. I'm going to give dad reasonable rights of parenting time as set forth in the front of the court handbook. I'm going to order that there be no consumption of alcohol by the father at any time when the child is in his care. This is not just intoxication. This is zero alcohol. I'm not going to order any kind of testing at this point, but if it comes to light, if it's apparent there's ongoing drinking issues when the child is here, I will order more serious steps. And I'm going to say, Mr. Silvius, you need to get a handle on the alcohol. You need to get an alcohol assessment. You shouldn't be drinking at all. Mr. White, you'll prepare a order consistent with my ruling here today. And I will refer the matter to the front of the court for a child support calculation consistent with my change in custody that's being ordered today. That modification of child support should be effective the date of the order. I guess today's date would be fine. Mr. Lugerai?
Yeah, I just have a question on your ruling. So parenting time will be pursuant to the handbook? Is that what you said?
Yeah, the front of the court handbook defines reasonable rights of parenting time. And that's what I'm awarding.
And there's a specific schedule in there? I just don't have it committed to memory.
Yeah, it's spelled out in great detail. It saves a lot of trouble in putting things in an order if we just specify that.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for all your time and consideration.
It's Nick, it's every other weekend. It's a midweek visit. It's alternating breaks, holidays, some summer parenting time is provided. It goes into great detail.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you, Mr. White.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Okay, sir.